So let's learn a little bit about the satisfying death of Disney. I never really liked Disney, but I really don't like them now. I used to like a few of the movies growing up, but I don't think they've made a good movie since Tangled that good for me, and like definitely not good recently. And I didn't like hardly any of the Marvel movies. So let's check out this video.
Disney is in a tailspin. They had 7 of the top 10 grossing movies in 2021, but now they're lucky to break even. Indiana Jones 5, Ant-Man and the Wasp 3, The Little Mermaid, Elemental, Lightyear, the list of their flops just keep on coming, and it's losing the company hundreds of millions of dollars every single time. And everything associated with Disney is now failing. Marvel, Lucasfilms, 20th Century Fox, Pixar, even Vice, which they own over a quarter of, has now actually gone bankrupt. All of these blunders have cost Disney dearly, causing their stock price to
It's because they keep hiring a bunch of people to make movies that don't actually care about making movies. They just care about Twitter politics.
drop dramatically, from nearly $200 just a couple of years ago to $86 today. That's nearly a 60% loss. And all this bad news has sparked talk of their demise, with rumors even coming out that Disney are preparing to sell out to Apple. I mean, they sold out creatively, and now it looks like they're also selling out financially. But whilst this Apple deal will probably never happen, Disney is still looking to downsize in the face of such massive losses. It's been reported that they're going to sell off many parts of Disney, which begs the question, what happened here? But when you
I think it was done on purpose because they couldn't handle being that big of a company anymore.
take a look at all of their different studios, you'll see that every part of the Disney empire is crumbling to dust. So first, let's take a look at Marvel, which used to be a license to print money for Disney. Nearly every single Marvel film was a massive success, literally making Disney billions of dollars. But ever since Endgame, something's been off. They ran out of stories to cover. With the main arc over, most of the characters were either written out or had nothing to do anymore. The big names of the franchise, Iron Man and Captain America, both finished their arcs, and the other heroes weren't able to pick up the slack. Thor, the only remaining part of the big
Yeah, and they just completely trashed him in his fourth movie.
three, was butchered in his latest and most likely
Yep.
final film, Thor: Love and Thunder. And yet this movie felt like it was written by children. The story had no real weight, and all the characters were treating everything like a joke. Comically bad CGI effects stuck out like a sore thumb, and there were more plot holes and nonsensical decisions than ever before. While some of the post-Endgame Marvel movies have found success, like Spider-Man No Way Home or Guardians of the Galaxy 3, this was almost in spite of them being Marvel movies. They added something new or original, something that made them feel actually worth watching. However, other Marvel movies that follow the same cookie
It's funny how the new and original thing in the Spider-Man movie was bringing back the characters from the old movies that they forgot about.
cutter formula have flopped massively. The most recent one, the third Ant-Man film, is a great example. It bombed out of the box office in
I forgot that movie came out. I don't even know what it's about, who's in it, other than Paul Rudd, I think is his name.
spectacular fashion, making it one of the first Disney Marvel films to not even break even. It only barely beat out Black Widow and Eternals, which both released when cinemas were shut down by the pandemic. And we're sure to see a bunch more flops, Snow White being one of them. And it may have taken over 30 films, but people are just getting tired of this recycled woke nonsense. And after Endgame, there's never really been more a Marvel film can do without bringing something new to the table itself. With the recent delays to the upcoming Avengers and Captain America films, they're clearly worried. News of Marvel films going wildly over budget have also plagued Marvel. Doctor Strange reportedly went $100 million over budget alone.
How do you do
These
that?
costs were then justified when they pulled in billions, but now they're just a massive liability. And as the age of Marvel comes to an end, Disney is struggling to fall back on its other franchises. Lucasfilms and their catalog hasn't been working out so well for Disney. After they finished off their new trilogy of films, there hasn't been much room left to grow into for Star Wars. New movies based around the universe like Solo, A Star Wars Story, haven't really found that much success. Whilst they found some success with longer Star Wars shows on their streaming platform, they've been forced to almost abandon new movies entirely. Other Lucasfilm properties have been even worse. Just look at Indiana Jones 5, the sequel that nobody asked for.
I didn't even watch it. I heard everybody talking about it, and everybody was saying it was meh. So, to be honest, I've never seen a single Indiana Jones movie. I probably should.
The opening box office debut of $130 million, despite being carried by Harrison Ford and John Williams, the film lost Disney hundreds of millions. Whilst all the ingredients for a good movie were there, maybe except the writing, it just didn't really pan out. People weren't interested in the first place, and the film did little to make itself worth buying a ticket. Without the Indiana Jones name, it would have been forgotten in days. However, with its name, it may take a few weeks, and despite being branded as the final installment, you can be sure of a remake later down the line if Disney even lasts that long. Pixar and their classic animated films have also been suffering just as much, if not more. Instead of creating new stories in these franchises, or even new ideas in general, they decided that making
Not to mention their theme park is falling apart, which he's probably going to talk about in this
a
video.
live-action, inclusively soulless version of an old film was good enough. Aladdin, The Lion King, Mulan, Peter Pan, The Little Mermaid, and most recently Snow White, where they pillaged their entire history just for a quick buck. Each of these remakes has driven the nail further into the coffin. Each one erodes a little more of their reputation and credibility. And for Disney, that's all they have. Their brand is how they get people to come to Disney World or go to the movie theater. On the surface, these films seem like Disney's trying to make up for their racist roots and bring their classics into the modern age. But that's all just a corporate veneer. I mean, let's take a look at one of Disney's most ridiculous moves towards wokeness, the upcoming live-action Snow White movie. Why we needed another one is a different question, but it looks like they've completely lost the point of the original. Judging by photos from the set, instead of 7 dwarves, Snow White is instead going to become friends with 7 magical creatures of varying ethnicities. There won't be a prince either. Instead, Snow White will be able to take power over the realm for herself. Or how about another one of their latest projects that's already been forgotten, Lightyear? How Disney's board thought it was a good idea is actually insane. It's not just that it's another Toy Story remake, it's a film based on a franchise that's still being made. It's a film based on the fictional backstory of a fictional toy that was meant to be as generic as possible, with a huge sprinkling of woke mixed in. And on top of these loose foundations, they built a slow, unoriginal story about an interstellar security guard.
Didn't even watch it. I heard that there was a gay kiss scene in it, and don't got a problem with gay people. I just don't want to see it in a kids movie. Nor do I want to see a straight kiss scene in a kids movie.
It's a wonder that the film even made back its $200 million production cost, but add in that hundreds of millions spent on marketing, and you get a sense of how Disney stock has fallen so low. To keep your edge nowadays, you need to do better than remakes and performative wokeness. This is a world where even the biggest global companies lost $800 billion in a single day. Yet still, new media continues cannibalizing itself, sucking any value or entertainment out of anything that's beloved by the actual users, all while increasing prices and slashing offers, as everyone begs them not to. So while failure may be deserved, it makes you wonder, if the giants of yesterday like Netflix and Disney letting their companies and stock prices plummet, where are we supposed to put our hard-earned money? Where do we look for opportunities? Especially since what's currently being sold as market salvation is actually growth in just 7 tech stocks. Opportunities that are long overhyped and overpriced by the time we get to them, but CEOs like Bob Iger would have us blissfully chasing these big names, while they stay one step ahead, storing their wealth in secretive markets known for their stability. But now we can beat the billionaires at their own game, getting into a market that keeps growing fueled by the uber rich, the art market. Even during 2023's economic catastrophe, art market sales have risen above pre-pandemic levels. And luckily you too can invest in this market without needing Iger level money, because our longtime sponsor Masterworks has already sold over $45 million of luxury art, with the net proceeds paid out directly to investors like you. Of course, as with any investment, future performance isn't guaranteed, but Masterworks' platform has delivered recent returns of 10, 17, and even 32% net. And with 750,000 plus members, it's no surprise that Masterworks' offerings can sell in minutes, and there's a waitlist to join, but you can get special access to skip that waitlist at the link in the description. Other attempts to reignite Pixar like Elemental have also flopped. Whilst it was a new and original idea on the surface, really it was just a rehash of other, much better Pixar films, like Inside Out. In fact, it was the second worst performing Pixar film of all time in just its first 3 days, only beaten by the initial release of Toy Story. But you get the feeling that Elemental won't have the same success later down the line. There's absolutely no magic to the film. Even Vice, yet another part of Disney's empire, has been failing. In fact, it completely failed commercially, going bankrupt in spectacular fashion. Once worth billions, the company was bought out recently for just $300 million. So you might have started noticing a pattern here. Vice threw away their credibility and their good name by completely changing their content. They used to make gritty, real documentaries about the criminal underworld and the forgotten people of the world, telling interesting...
Yeah, I remember all that. I used to watch Vice all the time. And then I don't know what happened. Actually, I do know what happened. Tim Pool could tell you.
Interesting, edgy stories no matter where. But now, they've been reduced to a BuzzFeed clone, pumping out vacuous, unoriginal, but incredibly politically correct videos. Fake edginess made people sick, and so they stopped watching, and the whole company eventually went bust. Now they're just another example of how everything Disney has touched has been falling apart. With failures across the board, it's not surprising that Disney's stock price has seen a 60% drop. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Everything about Disney's stumbling bureaucracy is collapsing in on itself. One of the most damaging aspects of their collapse has been the dent in their streaming revenue. Disney Plus lost around 2.4 million subscribers in the last 3 months of 2022, and they haven't stabilized since. And this is a huge part of their business, and millions of people checking out shows a massive loss in trust for their audience, causing them to announce the firing of over 7,000 employees. And when the failures started coming in, Disney had a knee-jerk reaction and even fired their new CEO, Bob Chapek. Chapek had been chosen as Bob Iger's successor, the man who ran Disney from 2005 into 2020, all to great success.
Yeah, to great success, but that led to here, where they're failing miserably. So I'm not sure if it was that guy or if it was Iger that really did it. Because it all just kept going and going. That's what happens whenever you go for, like, with Linus Tech Tips. You go for profits and profits and profits. You make more and more and more until it all just, the bubble pops. And then it crashes.
Making Disney one of the most powerful and richest companies in the world. But then just a year later, facing a financial disaster, Disney unceremoniously fired Chapek and rehired Iger. However, this didn't really make a difference, because the rot at Disney started well before Chapek took control, and he
Yeah.
barely had enough time to change anything. Now Iger's trying to sell off parts of the empire, offering some of Disney's TV networks like ABC and ESPN to other conglomerates. There's even rumors that he
ABC.
could sell the entire empire to Apple for a multi-billion figure, but Apple's denied that deal would take place. People often blame Disney's failures for the fact that they went woke, and it's not really hard to see why. A common theme throughout all of their failures is this weird focus on identity politics, progressivism, and sticking it to the man over originality and creativity.
I don't see what the point of a new Proud Family was. That was just ridiculously dumb.
And it's been the same across all of their franchises. Combined with unoriginal ideas and poor execution, it's made watching nearly any Disney product a chore. But their false wokeism hasn't just been limited to their movies. Disney's recent feud with Ron DeSantis has exposed a lot about both parties. It began with a Florida bill, championed by the presidential hopeful, which would ban gender education for the first few years of school, then put regulations on what they teach the older children. LGBT activists protested it as a direct attempt to push new ideas about gender and identity out of the school system. And Disney were happy to lend them a hand, making a series of donations to LGBT groups, which sparked a gigantic feud with DeSantis. After trading insults online and some off-color remarks, the disagreement heated up. DeSantis started using the power of the state against Disney, going straight for the throat. He got rid of Disney's special tax district, which they ran themselves, replacing it with a hostile board of his close allies. Using the district, Disney had been able to govern their own tracts of land with minimal government intervention. DeSantis even threatened to set up a prison or a competitor theme park right next to Disney World, Florida. Disney retaliated by suing DeSantis, protesting the recent changes as unconstitutional and demanding the reinstatement of their special privileges. Whilst the legal battle is still ongoing, it's already rumored that DeSantis is looking for a way out, especially as it could overshadow his.
I think he's gonna be looking for a way out of everything that he's gotten himself into. He should have waited to do all the presidential stuff and just stuck to his guns with this.
Upcoming presidential election. Disney also isn't too keen on the tax breaks and advantages they lost, especially with the wider company in chaos. On the whole though, fighting a legal battle with Disney isn't really the best idea. Their legal department is the best paid in the world and lets them throw lawsuit after lawsuit at whoever challenges them. But this is also a huge reason for their massive downfall in recent years. Disney's predatory corporate structure is finally destroying them from within, and it's the reason behind all of their awful choices in the past few years. Most of the company is useless on its own because it's solely dedicated to extracting wealth from their intellectual property. Disney World and all of the billions of products they sell all relies on their hoard of culture. They make billions licensing out the Disney name across the
Not anymore.
world. Most international Disney worlds aren't even actually run by Disney, but with such a valuable prize, they need some serious legal muscle to enforce the laws. Disney's legal department is so outsized and monolithic that the new chief legal officer made nearly $15 million in 2022, amounting to almost the same size as the CEO's salary. The previous chief legal officer was the best paid in the world, and their new one will remain in the top spot. All this money and power, combined with tens of millions for political lobbying, has given Disney virtual immunity, and if you just want a taste of how much influence Disney has, the 2 Disneylands in the US have the same airspace restrictions that are reserved for military bases. They're the only 2 places in America not run by the government with that privilege. And it's all of these parts of Disney that feed off their intellectual property, and over time, they've become the vast majority of what the company is. They've kept it going indefinitely by literally changing the copyright laws, getting more extensions to the deadline than a struggling college student. Over 100 years and into the future, the only thing they're going to lose is Steamboat Willie specifically, a cartoon from 1928. Its lifespan as property of Disney has been extended twice so far, and everything else will stay under Disney's control indefinitely. These other parts of Disney, corporate parts, have spread like a cancer, completely outgrowing the part of the company that actually creates value. Now they've lost even that, as the company has been infected by the corporate side of the business.
Yep.
You see, in recent times, Disney has found itself increasingly catering to the demand of its investors. Under the leadership of its new cost-conscious and relentless executives, Disney has been tight for money, doing everything they can to make a profit, no matter the cost. And this trend has been going on for several years now. This greedy cost-cutting method of making money didn't really seem to harm Disney. Their reputation was immaculate, and they had the confidence to do anything to make money. But they would eventually take it too far a few years ago, as in their quest to maximize profits, they reached a point of denying grieving parents the right to place an image of Spider-Man on their 4-year-old child's tombstone. Disney justified this by stating that they wanted to preserve the quote, magic and innocence of their characters, unless of course the father was willing to pay a substantial fee. But it didn't stop there, because this highlighted the much bigger issue that has been plaguing Disney for the last few years, and
That is disgusting. That is one of the most... I didn't even know that they went that far. That's worse than what Blizzard did with that AWC event.
this comes from its investors' political strategy. You see, Disney's former CEO Bob Iger stated that the company should be taking a stand on political issues and will no longer shy away from politics in the future. This would be a statement that would come back to bite Disney company horrendously, and it likely trickled
Yeah, let's let the multi-billion-dollar company that's supposed to be not in politics get into politics.
down from BlackRock,
Good
one of
idea.
Disney's top shareholders, owning 120 million shares within Disney. Now, to be clear, BlackRock is a powerful investment management firm, overseeing approximately 10% of all stocks traded globally, which amounts to about $10 trillion in assets. Bloomberg even referred to BlackRock as, quote, a fourth branch of government. BlackRock's founder and CEO, Larry Fink, has personal connections with the former Treasury Secretary, Timothy Geithner, and BlackRock has control over several major banks, which is why Fink is often considered the most influential man in America, because most investors and banks use BlackRock's ESG ratings to decide whether to invest in a company. And to be clear, an ESG rating, according to BlackRock, measures a company's exposure to long-term environmental, social, and governance risks. These risks include things like energy efficiency, worker safety, and board independence, which can have significant financial implications if not properly managed. But then in 2018, this score underwent a change, when Fink wrote a letter to all the companies under his influence, stating that they must, quote, contribute to society or risk losing our support, adding that, quote, society is demanding that companies, both public and private, serve a social purpose. And of course, Disney would do everything
That sounds like socialism. And that is not good.
it can to satisfy its biggest investors. So it shouldn't be any shock that Disney has the second highest ESG rating in the entertainment industry, which is why today we see Disney at the forefront of the recent push for social justice and progressivism. Now, the first crack started to show when Disney became increasingly political, strongly opposing Florida's new public education bill, which prevented teachers from educating children below 3rd grade about sex and gender ideology. Now, it's unclear why Disney is so vehemently opposed to this particular bill, or why a multinational billion-dollar company that relies on the state of Florida would suddenly weigh in on grade school education, unless it's somehow related to their ESG rating. But it didn't stop there. Disney is at the forefront of educating people on white privilege, giving their employees white privilege checklists as a part of an internal program that includes a series of training modules and
Okay, this is a really good video. I didn't expect there to be this much information.
anti-racism, as they frequently instruct their employees not to question the lived experiences of their black colleagues, and to challenge colorblind ideologies and rhetoric, recommending materials to their employees like, quote, 75 things white people can do for racial justice, and your kids are not too young to talk about race, all while they censor black people from their movie posters in China and actively support the government accused of genocide and racial segregation. Because while fighting for gay rights in the West, they're happy to instantly fold to censorship in other countries. The only reason Lightyear made it into the news cycle last year was because of the same-sex kiss scene and the predictable controversy that surrounded it. But Disney cut that scene from release in Russia, China, and the Middle East. Other films, including Endgame, were doctored for foreign release to take out any LGBT-friendly scenes. And it's decisions like this that show Disney's hypocrisy and corporate greed for what they really are. When profits are at stake, they always put the money over everything else. Just look at their opposition to Hollywood strikes. Surely this modern, diverse company should support workers' rights and fair pay for the people who keep them afloat, right? Well, of course not. Bob Iger called the strikes disruptive and said the writers' pleas for fair play were unrealistic, all while making $27 million a year. But soon, Bob Iger's in for an awakening. Disney is on the brink of collapse. A few more flops could really be the push they need to finally fall apart. But with their awful track record for
I think they have already fallen apart and they pulled themselves back together with like hot glue and duct tape. And it's just a matter of time before it all comes back apart again.
ethics and honesty, it's been a long time coming.
Well, that was interesting. I kind of already knew a lot of that information, but it was definitely cool to see it all put together in one video. Yeah, Disney is not a good company. They are evil. They're an evil corporation that wants to control our minds so they can be on top of the authoritarian socialist regime that's plaguing the country. And it goes hand in hand with communism.